I learned to measure my life in receipts, grocery receipts with the edges curled from my wallet, tuition statements with my name typed under responsible party, mortgage stubs I never signed my name to because the house was never going to be mine. Every month, I stacked them in a blue accordion folder and slid it to the back of the filing cabinet, behind the tax returns and appliance warranties, where no one ever looked. I didn't call it evidence then. I called it being careful. When IED Mark, I was 32 and newly cautious. He had a son, Evan, 12 years old and already taller than me, with the long-limbed confidence of a boy who'd learned early that the world bent around him. His mother had died when he was 6. The store. Why was told softly, as if grief were a china cup that might crack if you handled it wrong. I handled it right. I learned the rhythms of their house, the way grief lingered in corners but never at the table. I was a housewife because it made sense. Ark's consulting job paid well but demanded travel. Evan needed someone steady. My own career, paralegal, 15 years in litigation support, had reached a place where I could step away without burning bridges. I told myself it was temporary. 2 years. Maybe 3. Get Evan through high school. Then I'd go back. Temporary became permanent without anyone saying it out loud. I ran the house like a small firm. Calendars, deadlines, budgets. I negotiated with contractors, compared insurance policy. Tracked Evan's grades, made dentist appointments, organized Mark's receipts so his accountant would stop calling. When Mark forgot passwords, I reset them. When Evan needed tutoring, I found it and paid the deposit. When Mark's mother fell and broke her wrist, I flew out to Ohio and stayed 3 weeks, sleeping on a pull-out couch and cooking soft food. People praised me for being supportive. That word followed me everywhere. Supportive wife. Supportive stepmother. At neighborhood dinners, women leaned in and said, "You're amazing, I don't know how you do it." Men nodded as if I were a reliable appliance. Mark introduced me as the one who keeps everything together, which sounded like a compliment until you realized it meant nothing. G stayed together for me. Evan learned quickly what I was for. He never asked if I was busy. He announced needs like weather reports. I need money for debate camp. I need a ride to practice. I need help with my application. He learned the sound of my hesitation and how to push past it. When he was 17, he learned the exact tone that made me give in. Mark didn't correct him. Once, when Evan was a sophomore in college and called at midnight because his credit card had been declined. "Ed," I said no. I said we'd talk in the morning. Evan laughed and put Mark on the phone. Mark said gently, "Just this once, okay? He's under a lot of pressure." It was always just this once. The subtle foreshadowing of betrayal didn't arrive as Dr. Ama. It arrived as omission. Mark stopped including me in conversations about money. Evan started calling the house Dad's place. When Mark's attorney sent over estate planning documents, my name appeared under spouse, but no assets were attached to it. I asked about it once. Mark kissed my forehead and said, "It's just paperwork." Paperwork is never just paperwork. I kept the blue folder anyway. The sentence that broke me was delivered as a joke. "She's just a housewife," Evan said, low. Ying, his voice echoing slightly in the courtroom. "She doesn't know anything about business or law." The room went quiet in the way rooms do when someone says something true enough to be cruel. The lawsuit had come out of nowhere, or so they thou. Mark had died 18 months earlier, a sudden aneurysm in a hotel room in Denver. Grief rearranged the house, but it didn't soften anyone. Evan inherited quickly, accounts, property interests, stock options, everything Mark had built. I receive the house, with a mortgage I'd been paying for years, and a modest life insurance policy that vanished into expenses within months. I stayed because Evan was still finishing law school, because Mark's mother needed help, because leaving felt like abandoning a post I'd held for too long to walk away quietly. Then Evan sued me. Wrongful conversion, undue influence, financial mismanagement. He claimed I had siphoned money from accounts I was never authorized to access. He claimed I manipulated Mark in his final years. He claimed, in writing, that I was an uneducated dependent who'd overstepped her role. I stopped arguing. I stopped explaining. I started listening. In that courtroom, when Evan laughed, I looked at the judge. For the first time, the judge was older, with a habit of folding his hands when people talked too much. He looked at Evan the way experienced men look at young ones who believe confidence is the same as competence. I recognized that look. The DG recognized me, not yet. But soon, I prepared the way I always had, quietly, methodically, without asking permission. I hired my own attorney, a woman named Rachel, who asked few questions and listened carefully to the answers. I brought her the blue accordion folder. Then I brought boxes, receipts, emails, bank authorizations, text messages, travel itineraries, spreadsheets I'd maintained for years because someone had to know where the money went, audio recordings of Mark asking me to DLE things while he was on the road. Signed powers of attorney Evan had forgotten about. Rachel's eyebrows lifted exactly once. "They've underestimated you," she said. "I know," I said. Evan grew louder. His filings became more theatrical. He gave interviews to local blogs about greedy stepmothers and opportunistic dependents. He smiled for cameras outside the courthouse. He called me Mrs. Martin in court, never me stepmother. I watched him do it. I watched him contradict himself. I watched him explain financial concepts incorrectly. I watched him submit documents he clearly hadn't read carefully. I watched him talk. Overconfidence is a generous thing. It gives away everything. Evan presented his case first. He spoke for nearly an hour about trust, about betrayal, about how vulnerable his father had been. He painted me as small, grasping, confused. He used words like influence and access and control as if repetition made them true. I took notes when it was my turn. Rachel stood. I stayed seated. We introduced one document at a time, a bank authorization Evan had signed at 19, granting me access to the accounts he claimed I'd stolen from, an email from Mark sent 6 months before his death instructing me to move funds to cover Evan's tuition shortfall. A spreadsheet Evan himself had requested during his first year of law school, asking me to keep doing what you do. Evan interrupted once. The judge held up a hand, then Rachel called the DGE's attention to my prior career. "Mrs. Martin worked for 15 years as a paralegal in this jurisdiction," she said, "including in this court." The judge looked up sharply. I met his eyes. Recognition settled between us like something placed gently on a table. The final evidence was Evan's own voice. A voicemail he'd left me 2 years earlier, angry and careless. "Just handle it like you always do," he'd said. "You're good at that legal crap." The judge listened without expression. Then Evan spoke. He tried to explain, to reframe, to minimize. Each word dug deeper. The ruling was concise, case dismissed, sanctions imposed, public record amended. Evan sat down hard. I moved out 3 months later. I bought a small townhouse near the river. I took a contract position with a firm that remembered me. I changed my phone number. Evan did not apologize. He did not have to. The last time I saw him, he looked at me with something like fear or understanding. It was hard to tell. I closed the blue accordion folder for the final time and recycled it. I no longer needed proof. I had become undeniable.